I want to start off with John Morant, right? So, to start it off, I want to read some stuff for you guys. So, let's see. So, why did the league choose to suspend John Morant for 25 games? So, it says the penalty fits into where the league positioned itself following the Miles Bridges suspension in April. Bridges was suspended for 30 games, 20 deemed served during the 2022-2023 season for pleading no contest to felony domestic violence charge. Silver on the record as saying Morant's actions were a safety issue, not a legal one, which was the case for Bridges. The league is taking a position that Morant's actions were reckless and portrayed him and the NBA in a negative light, but that the incident did not rise to the level of Bridges' offense. Morant's suspension stands as the second longest given out under Silver's 10-season tenure behind Bridges, tied with 5 players who were banned 25 games for testing positive for performance-enhancing drugs. So, to put this in context, to sum it all up, Morant got suspended 25 games for pretty much 2 offenses, right, when it comes to the guns violation. And Adam Silver is not playing around. Let's just get that out the way. Anywho, let's go down. Any exists for type of what president, if any, exists for this type of suspension? Gilbert Arenas, Javaris Crinton were both suspended for the rest of the season in January 2010 after an incident involving guns in the Washington Wizards locker room. Arenas' suspension, 50 games, was technically longer than Creighton's 38 because Arenas had been suspended for 12 games before then NBA Commissioner David Stern made his official ruling. In Morant's case, the guns were not on team property, but this was a second offense following the March incident. What rules did Morant break, and is there any appeals process? The NBA has broad power if it believes power conduct is detrimental to the league. When we have a standard for conduct detrimental, at the end of the day, it's one based on what we see as the values of this league and what our expectations for our players are in terms of the image we're portraying to our fans. Silver said before Game 1 of NBA Finals. So, it's not a legal standard. It's a private organization standard as part of the NBA's collective bargaining agreement. Morant has 30 days to file a grievance. An arbitrator would then decide if the suspension holds or is reduced. What will Morant be required to do to return? Now, this is the big one. It's not just 25 games. He has to do other things in order to come back on the court. Keep that in mind. So Morant briefly enrolled in a counseling program in Florida after the incident in March, and he said he learned how to manage stress better. Silver has made it clear that the league will be involved in approving the new counseling Morant must receive. Prior to his return to play, he will be required to formulate and fulfill a program with the league that directly addresses the circumstances that led him to repeat this destructive behavior, Silver said in Friday's league statement. All right. So basically, Morant not only has to serve 25 games, but he has to do a counseling program in order to show that I have learned my ways and that I am getting help, and he will be monitored by the NBA, not just word of mouth from the organization. What contact, if any, of the Grizzlies players, coaches, and front office allowed to have with Morant during his suspension? According to league officials, the exact terms of Morant's participation in non-public team activities haven't been decided. He will not be allowed to participate in any public activities or play in preseason game. But in the past, players who were under long suspensions were permitted to use team facilities for treatment and for workouts, and that is likely to be the case here. Under the general terms of the suspension, the only restriction is that the players is not allowed to be in the arena starting 2 hours before a game. So then it says, where does Morant spend his offseason? Do we expect he'll be there during the suspension? Morant has been in the past spent majority of his offseasons at his home suburban Memphis. The Grizzlies and the league office will likely have some input on where he spends this summer and the suspension. In this statement released Friday, Morant said, I'm spending the offseason and my suspension and continue to work on my own mental health and decision making. I'm also going to be training so that I'm ready to go when I can be back on the court. Now here's another one. Here's another important one. How does this impact Morant's contract in 2023-2024 salary? The financial implications are systemic. Seismic, excuse me. I said systemic. Seismic. Unlike the previous suspension that cost Morant $83,583 per game and a total almost $669,000, the current suspension increases to $304,545 per game and a total of more than $7.6 million. There are two reasons for the significant increase. The first is that because the suspension is for 20 games or more, the per game amount is 1/110th of his 2023 and 24 salary. The 8-game suspension during the season cost Morant only 1/145th of his 2022-2023 salary per game. And the second, Morant is set to enter year one of $194 million rookie max extension that he signed last July. His salary jumps from $12.1 million to $33.5 million. Now that we understand everything that's going on with this Ja Morant suspension, let's react to it. Number one, I think the suspension was appropriate. I think it was good enough. And, the NBA PA thinks it's too much. 25 games is too much. Just stop it. He was wrong. He's a repeat offender. He lied on camera. This is exactly what needs to happen in order to prevent another situation like this from happening. So I applaud the NBA for finally putting their foot down and resorting to these measures, because Ja Morant is a phenomenal talent and he's one of the brightest stars in the NBA. He could be the face of the NBA one day. Like, that's how talented he is. So in order for your league to benefit from Ja Morant, you need to make sure that he's on his best behavior. And how do you do that? Well, you need to get that other shit out of here. That gunplay, that wannabe gangster mentality, you have to get that out of here. You have to change his image. And the best way to change his image, the best way to knock some sense into him is take money out of his paycheck and make sure that he can't play basketball, because those are two things he really enjoys: getting paid and playing basketball for it. So guess what? You're not going to be able to do it. But I do like the idea that he's still able to go into the training facilities and all that stuff. I believe he can go to the training facilities for the Memphis Grizzlies and all that stuff, because at the end of the day, you want him to be around the team as much as possible. And I think one of the problems with Ja Morant in the past is that he's around his clique, he's around his own crew, when he should be around his teammates, trying to get better, trying to build a camaraderie with his teammates and everything like that. Like, hang out with your teammates instead of hanging out with this clique that's a bad influence. And I believe him being around the team, I think that's a good idea. I disagree with Stephen A. too a little bit. I do understand where he's coming from, because you want to punish him as much as possible. But at the end of the day, you want to build a habit with Ja Morant that, one, he can use for the rest of his career. You want to build good habits. You don't want him to just go into a complete darkness at the end of the day. This is a healing process, not a situation where you want him to be just depressed, right? We want him to heal from this, to get better from this, not be depressed from this. And I believe that him being with the team, not being able to play, is going to do damage to himself, and it's going to motivate him to get right, get better, be a better person, be a better teammate, be a better friend to whomever is on the squad. And I like what the league has done. Finally, they've done something. They've not let one player get away with whatever it may be, because they've been letting a lot of these players get away with a lot of bullshit in these past few years. So good for the league, and I like it. Hopefully, again, Ja Morant just learns from his mistakes, gets better, gets back on the court, and we could see him play, because he's a great talent, and he was drafted number 2. I remember watching him when he was in Murray State in in the NCAA tournament. He was very exciting to watch, and hopefully we can see more of him play.